think that's the funniest thing. I was telling somebody, I'm like, I think that the hardest part about being a creative is one, not understanding yourself, but then when other people are in that journey with you, it's like, I feel that most creatives are misunderstood. You know?
I think so.
I feel like that's fair.
I feel like if they're not misunderstood, I feel like they don't, it's either that or they don't know how to express themselves in a way that is palatable for people.
Right.
But then again, it's like the type of creative that you are you even looking to be palatable for people? You know,
right? Is that the goal? I don't know. I think people make it the goal and it gets lost. That's like...
Yeah.
So...
I think so too.
I know. Well, officially, thank you for being here.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I'm so stoked about this. I think that the best part is that I get to bring people along.
Hey.
It's fun because I feel like there's not a perfect person for the perfect audience. It's more or less
that's true.
Bringing to light the creative gifts that we have and what that looks like in different seasons, what that looks like for different mediums.
Yeah.
And so the main foundation of this is that we can talk about what it requires.
That's
and
good.
I think that...
Should we intro ourselves?
For you, I'm going to hand that over. So tell us how we got here, how you got to this place. And I'll let you take the direction, the map.
Wait, the what?
To this place in your life. How you can summarize, you can kind of give us a high level.
Of like being a creative. Well, man, I'm trying to think because I feel like my main creative outlet right now is like music. Mm-hmm. That's a huge part of my life. I like started taking piano lessons when I was 4 or 5. My first instrument actually is drums. So drums was my first instrument.
At what age?
I'm 3.
Okay.
And then my mom actually enrolled me in piano lessons because I was such a hyper kid that she was like, I need you to sit down for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And just like,
let's work this energy out in a way. Yeah, right.
So I actually hated it.
Thank goodness for moms.
Oh my God. Thank you, God. Literally, if it wasn't for my mom's persistency, I don't think I wouldn't have a career.
Yeah.
You know?
Same.
So,
same. Absolutely same.
Shout
out to the moms.
I hated piano for 3 years or something. I was classically trained for 8. And then I was living in Oklahoma at the time in Tulsa. And then we moved to Dallas, took a year off because we were like moving and all that stuff. Yeah. Did lessons again. And then I was like, you know what? I don't really like being classically trained because I was like doing a lot of church stuff. So I was like, you know what? YouTube Academy. I'm going to learn off of YouTube and just like play it by ear and figure it out. And so that's what we did.
That's how you.
And so, I mean, I'm 28. So I've been playing an instrument for 20 something years
since
now.
25
years
of
my life. Yeah.
So it's grown with you.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And it's 100%. Funny how moms, depending on what age that gift is spoken into, or maybe at the time it wasn't a gift, it was some sort of energy that was then channeled towards something else.
Yeah.
So then through your life in your younger years, whether that's like junior high, high school, because remind me, did you go to college?
I went to college.
Okay.
I went to a small Bible college actually in Dallas.
Okay.
For 4 years. Right. It was awesome.
It's coming back to me.
I got my bachelor's in theology because I wanted to be a worship leader, and I felt like there was a lot of people my age that took the worship leader position, but knew the ins and outs of a service, ins and outs of a set list, and how to make the room feel. But when it came to the actual lyrics and what we're actually singing about and what the depth, the theology of it, I was like, man, I think there's a lack in a lot of worship leaders. And so I was like, I don't want to be a worship leader that isn't equipped on the theology side.
Right.
So that's why I decided to get my degree in theology and biblical studies versus getting a worship degree, quote unquote.
Right. How do you feel like that's poured into or served your creative gifts?
Man, I feel like with that, I'm honestly really grateful that I took that route because it made me a better writer.
Right.
I'm able to put things into practice. I'm able to be okay, I know actually what this means and how it applies to my life, instead of me just like trying to like feel out a bridge or feel out a chorus and then just like put it on paper. If I actually, because I feel like, you know, like, I mean, I'm a church kid, right? I grew up in church. Whenever you leave a Sunday morning, you're not humming the points of a message.
Right. No, you're not. Absolutely
like
not.
you're humming song 1, you're humming song 2. And so, I mean, this is not me saying that the message is less than at all by any means. But like the stuff that sticks is music and worship. And it's like, I heard this said that like music is one of the elements in the world that penetrates your heart without asking.
Yes.
You know, it's like
you don't have a choice in the matter.
You don't have a choice. Yeah. Once you hear it, you're going to be affected
and
one way.
When it hits you, it hits you.
Yeah, one way or another. Yeah. I hear Shake a Groove Thing by Peaches and Cream, and I just can't help be like, oh my God, this song is awesome. Yeah, this song is great. Yeah. You know, or I hear like a song like I Belong to Jesus by Bethel, and it takes me back to a time where Jules and I were believing for our first kid.
Right.
You know, like music has the power to just like take you back to moments,
it has
put you in moments.
I totally agree.
And so it's really, really going back to like your question. I feel like it's really helped me understand like what season of life I'm in.
Yeah.
You know, like being able to write, being able to sing, being able to produce, even like me taking on projects. Sometimes I'll take on projects that don't necessarily add up to my season because I'm like, well, like I know I can do this, but it has to be like a personal expression to me.
Yes,
so
right.
Maybe in 6 months I can revisit that. But for now, I'm like in this thing. So does that help? Does that make sense?
No, it totally makes sense. I think that execution is important. But I want to back up a little bit in the essence of like your mom kind of was like, hey, here's this piano thing. At what point did it become your choice?
Oh, that's a good question. Man, I would say, when did it become my choice? So whenever we moved to Dallas, I was in 3rd grade. We moved during Christmas break. We did the first semester in Tulsa, the second semester in Dallas. And growing up, I went to like a local Indian church for the majority of my life.
Okay.
And so we got in Dallas, I would say. In Tulsa, we went to like a multi-ethnic, non-denominational church. So like that was my life from 0 to 9. And then here I am at 9 years old. And I now go to a church that like where everyone looks like me, everyone kind of talks like me, everyone like we all eat the same stuff. Right. And so a team like that, it's not necessarily that big, you know, like our church was like 300-ish people, so everyone knows everyone. Right. So I joined the worship team when I was like in like 4th or 5th grade. Right. And
out of choice?
Yeah, I have a choice of just being like, I think I could do this. Sure. But I think me being able to be with older guys and like kind of like big brothers and big sisters, I realized how much they love music, and it kind of spurred me on to be like, no, I think I want to do this.
Right. Like you got to see it in its form, not just within the lesson.
And I think I saw it in its form, and I saw it in its form in an excellent way. Right. Like I saw people showing up, they actually cared about the set. Yeah. They cared about what we're doing. They cared about like a Sunday morning. Yep. So I was like, I think probably like middle school is really when I started taking music. Yeah. Right.
And was that something that was always your thing, or did you kind of come in and out of it?
Nah, it's always been my thing.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it's always been my thing. I took it really seriously in middle school, and like in high school I actually started a worship night with a bunch of friends of mine, and some of those friends are actually like very well known in like the Christian music world, which is awesome to see. And so started that in high school, then in college did my own thing music wise. The end of my senior year I did a record, like a live recording. That was a lot of fun. We're in 2024, so that was 6 years ago. Oh,
no, let's not age ourselves.
Oh my God. Yeah, we recorded that May of 2018, and then we released it I think March of 2019. It took us like almost a year to release, but It's been awesome. I can't believe I'm looking back at it now. I mean, I can't believe it's been 5 years since the record's been out.
Right.
And 2024 will be the year. Well, you'll hear more from me. So,
we love to hear it.
Little sneak peek.
That's so exciting.
But yeah, there's a couple. I have some songs in the cooker, and I think I'll probably do the bare minimum. I think I'll do like 2 songs this year, bare minimum, because like I have a 1.5. Well, actually, my son Z's almost 2 in 2 months. And then we have a baby due in May. So we got 2 kids. So the year's gonna be crazy.
Absolutely.
But my goal for 2024 is actually to release music. And I feel like the Lord's on it. So I think I'll do at least 2 songs.
That's incredible.
If not another EP, at least 2 songs.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. So coming, let's say, post-college to now, you've been in the church since college. Mm-hmm. And so talk to me a little bit about your growth and maturity with your gifts within the church in that time.
Oh, that's good. That's a good question. I would say I would encourage anyone, if you feel like called to go into ministry or like work for a church, I would say like do your due diligence in terms of like make sure that you have a prayer life. Mm-hmm. Make sure that like you have faith. Make sure that, practically speaking, that your finances are in a good spot.
Yeah.
You know, like Jules and I, my wife Jules, we actually graduated college debt free.
Awesome.
And so like I didn't realize how big of a deal that was. Mm. I didn't realize at all.
Right.
Jules is super smart. She had like almost a full ride. Awesome. And I just like worked my whole time in college because I didn't want to, graduate with debt. And we bought our house in 2020. So I guess like the only thing that we have is like our house, but I don't really consider that like.
No, that's an asset.
Yeah, it's an asset.
And it appreciates.
Yeah, exactly. And
not justifying debt by any means, but it does. So houses don't matter.
No, yeah. And so I think I would say like being in ministry now, I've been like full-time vocational ministry for I would probably say like 5 years now, 5 or 6 years. I'd probably say I've been in some form of ministry for probably 12 years, I would say. But like full time, I'm waking up, doing it, and I'm sleeping, and I wake up and again, I'm still doing it. It's probably like the last 5 years, ever since college, really, or post college, it's been 5 years. And so now that I'm in it and I get to see like the church world and all that stuff, I'm like, man, I'm really, really grateful that I had an upbringing that instilled like roots and culture and values in me, because it really has carried me to where I am today. Obviously the grace of God, prayer, all those things for sure. But man, seeing even my gifts, right, in church, there's only so many things that school can teach you.
Correct.
It's like, I feel like that's everyone's story coming out of post-college. I didn't know about this.
Taxes?
It's like, it's like whenever you graduate high school, you're like, why didn't no one tell me about the stock market and this and investments and passive income? Like, why did no one tell me about this? And so I feel like now though, especially being where we are, I freaking love my church like so much. And it's awesome to say that I've been on staff for this long and I still love it, Right. Like, I feel like that's actually not a common
No, it's rare.
in church world, but we have amazing pastors, we have amazing leaders, and they're the type of people that want to see you thrive in your gifting. And so I'm honored that I get to play a small part at what we get to do at the church. And did I answer your question? I hope I did.
More or less.
Yeah, more or less,
Collectively, what I hope is a universal understanding as a creative is your environment is nearly everything.
Yeah.
And the places you exist in secret and in public, right? Our safe space, our home,
that's true.
Our relationships, and then in the public, wherever we essentially invest our time to work or whatever, those things are extremely important.
Super.
And we can also agree that there are spaces that are unique, and you being able to be in that space that's unique, especially in church, I feel like there's probably a lot to unpack there. And in those spaces, I feel like your environment is cultivating your gifts. But what about a challenging season or a hard time where you might have felt creatively, I don't necessarily say numb, but we've all been in those spaces where it's like creatively, we kind of question.
Stuck?
Yeah, we're like, is this really, like, I'm not feeling in the flow as much as I have before in different spaces.
Yeah.
What do you do with those times?
Oh man, I feel like those times come probably more often than we like to admit.
Agreed.
For creatives. I feel like depending on, like you said, your environment, your choices, your money in the bank, where you're living, your community. I mean, all that stuff kind of affects how you do approach getting out of the hole, if you may. And so I know for me, and practically speaking, like, because I am in ministry, I do work at a church. For me, a big thing is prayer and just like taking it to the Lord and being like, okay, God, show me something that I'm not seeing. Like, God, is there something that like in my life that I need to address, or do I have like offense?
Right.
Or is there something that like has been on the back burner for too long now and it's kind of like eating up my mental space?
Right. The blocks are real.
Yeah, the thoughts are, we all have them, and we all have probably more negative ones, than we like to admit to, of like, absolutely. Oh my God, I hate this. I'm like, oh my God, will anyone like this song? Will anyone like this design? Or, oh my God, wait, do people like my voice?
Yeah,
I don't know. It's just crazy. And so I feel like for me, like prayer is a really big thing. I also feel like, man, honestly, I really take a moment to look at who I've been spending my time with, because those are the people that'll fill you up. Right. And like, I mean, I hated when my dad used to tell me this, but it's so true that like, show me your 5 closest friends.
And I'll show you who you are.
I'll show you who you are. I'll show you where you'll be in like a couple of years. And I'm like, oh my God, it is so true. Yep. I had a season where I had friends. They were awesome. They were like nice, caring. Right. But there was no drive, and there was no like, let's go take the hill. Let's go see what's next. Right. And then I look back at my life and I'm like, dude, there's no growth. Right. And it's like, it's almost worse for me to see stagnancy versus a decline. Yeah. Because a decline, at least there's movement.
Mediocrity, right. Yeah, no, absolutely.
And so for me, I have like, for sure prayer, for sure looking at my friends. And I mean, the guys that I have in my life right now, those are the guys that, man, I can call any moment, anytime, and be like, hey man, I'm going through this, I'm thinking about this, or I need your feedback on this, what do you think? And I know that they're not going to just be like, oh, it's great. Yeah, right. Like, they'll be like, hey man, this is awesome. Or hey, like, I think you should like maybe rethink this, or go back to the drawing board, or like, oh, have you thought about it this way? And so friends is a big one. I'm trying to think what else.
But I feel like all those play a part, even in the lows, but in the highs too, because I feel like we really lean on the things that work even when it's good, when it's bad. So I just feel like it's amplified, the resources that we have. I also feel like depending on who you're around or what you're inspired by, I feel like where your inspiration comes, sometimes your heart follows.
Yeah, that's true. Very true.
And I feel like I've been wrecked in that, in a way of just like at the time in the season and the place and the hurt or whatever you're carrying, you can be inspired by something. And not that it's ever bad. Inspiration comes in so many different forms.
It does. But I know for me, like, being a musician, a huge piece of inspiration for me is actually going to shows. Like, for me, if I can go to any show, and you're going to be mad that I say this, but any show besides country. Guys,
got me.
Guys, I just can't do it, man.
It's so funny to hear.
Do it.
Because it's the people who don't do it are
Carrie
like,
Underwood is cool.
Okay.
Luke Combs is cool.
Okay, fair.
I mean, the legend George Strait, you have to honor and pay respects.
You do.
I'll listen to Zach Bryan, and like, that's kind
fair.
of it.
Okay, we have a common ground.
Okay,
yeah, we have a common ground. So musically, what's your jam? What's your...
Oh man. Okay, so my parents were super strict growing up.
Right.
So it was like Sandy Patty. It was like Amy Grant, Michael W. Smith, Stephen Curtis Chapman, the Newsboys,
Here I am
Skillet. Oh my God, they were so strict. But like, man, when I was like in second grade, third grade, fourth grade, we would have like a family downstairs. I would for sure wake up in the middle of the night, go downstairs, go to YouTube, and listen to Neo and Chris Brown and 3 6 Mafia and like Lil Jon and like Waka Flocka. So
that's
honestly,
so
hip hop and R&B, that has a huge impact on my life.
Right.
I actually feel like I really like that genre, and like Jay-Z is one of my favorite artists to listen to like of all time. Like I love the Christian side for sure, but like growing up, if it wasn't Christian music for me, it was hip hop and rap and R&B. Yeah,
which I think that it's cross genres is helpful because it's interesting, the creative execution based on a genre. And I think a lot of artists now are even being like, I'm not going to fit the box. I'm just going to create music that feels real to me.
For sure.
And that's really fun to see.
I love it.
In the modern day, it's really... And I feel like music is one of those places where creativity is so different, but also because it's a tangible execution.
That's
where
true.
I feel like sometimes as creative people, we feel lost because of the tangible execution we're seeking that might not fit a mold. We're not a musician, but we're not really a painter. But are we really but it's like these creative gifts and depending on the medium. And I also, in my own space, it's like you knew from a really early age what that was for you.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
And there are a lot of people that have a creative gift that either aren't spoken into or they don't have the space to put it, or it's majorly parental, I feel like, of like being spoken into or given opportunity to explore.
Yeah.
So their creative gifts are developed a lot later in life. And
they don't notice until like they move out of their house, something like that. Yeah.
And I feel like it causes a little bit of an identity crisis. But have you ever been in a situation to mentor someone?
Oh yeah.
In those spaces, and what has that been like?
Oh, yeah. For me, I'm a first generation American.
Yeah.
And so like I'm South Indian. There's not a ton of South Indians that like work at a big American quote unquote church. And so I actually feel like I have this honor and this opportunity to actually mentor a lot of like younger dudes that'll like find me on IG or like they're in Dallas and they're like, hey man, like I'm thinking about like making the move from high school straight to Bible college. I know you did it. How did that work for you? Because my parents, they didn't want me to go to Bible college right after high school. Not like in a malice or bad way. Right. But they were just like, hey, just in case something doesn't work out or whatever it may be, or you change career paths later on in life, you have like a degree in your back pocket to fall on. And I'm like, practically and logically that makes sense, but like, I don't think this is what the Lord told me.
How often are we in those spaces being like, what makes sense to you feels like a rejection of self to me?
Yeah. And it's just tough because it's like, it's your parents, right? And it's like, I was 18. I'm like, I don't know anything. Right. But like, I'm pretty sure I heard the Lord. Right. But like, it's almost like that crossing too of like your own person within your family of like, hey, yes, I'll forever be your son, but like, I'm also a husband. Yep. I'm also now a dad. So like, conversation and things just look different. They do. And it's not a bad thing. It's just part of life. It is. And so I feel like going back, I've had the opportunity to mentor actually a good amount of guys that look like me, that kind of are like the only Indian guy on staff. Yeah. And it's like, well, it's not a bad thing. You know, it's like, that's what the Lord's called you, you know, and we're the generation that we're the trailblazers. Right. So that way more people that feel like they have the calling and the yearning to go into ministry, whether it's church or music or whatever it may be. There's some older folk, quote unquote, that have been like, oh yeah, like Jono's been at that church for 20 years. Like, oh my gosh, if he can do it, then I can do it, you know? And honestly, I feel like, I actually really like that you said that, because that's a big thing that really drives me, you know? Like, I feel like in ministry, there's always the crazy stories. Everyone wants the crazy stories of like, oh, like this person had an affair, or this person like is gambling, or there's fraud and blah. And it's like, man, like I want to live my life in such a pure way that obviously for my family, for my kids, I can't believe I'm saying kids now.
I know.
So
multiples.
Kids and all that stuff. Yeah. But for a big driving portion for me is like, I want to live my life in a way that like in 10 years, there's a young Jono down the road that's like trying to figure out life. And he's like, wait, you're telling me that there's a guy that like ate the same food that I did growing up and like looks like me, and like his parents also have a slight accent and they're still trying to figure it out, and like he's still doing this thing.
Right.
Holy crap, maybe I can, you know? That's a huge driving piece to doing what I do.
Right.
Huge.
So I want to transition a little bit into your creative projects. Because I feel like the foundation of who you are and your journey also influences your process. So
yeah, it's true.
You also have your hand in different creative aspects, but let's talk about one and what your creative process is like and kind of how that's been refined over the years.
For music?
You pick one.
Oh,
Miller's Draw or whatever that's called. I don't know.
Okay, we'll go with music. That's the easiest one for me.
Right.
So yeah, I've been doing music for 25 years now. I would say my creative process is that I don't have one. Oh my
That's the most creative thing to say.
Yeah, I feel like I have more mentalities than I do processes. And
I love that.
Like, I don't have necessarily like a minute by minute thing.
Right.
But I have things in my life that reestablish who I want to be as a creative. So like when it comes to music, whenever I experience a high emotional moment, no matter what the emotion is, I always try to make sure that I have a point, whether it's immediately after or soon after that moment, that I actually ask myself, how did I feel? And like, what did I feel?
Wow.
And like, could there be a song that comes out of it? Cool. Could it be just me just practicing having healthy mentals? Great. You know, it's fine.
Right.
So like, I know that's a big thing for me. I know that for me, songwriting is something that I really want to grow into. I have a friend of mine that she writes a song a day and like, or like sometimes two. And I think that's insane. But songwriting is like, it's literally crazy. It's wild.
Right.
But songwriting is like, it's like going to the gym. It freaking sucks at first.
Right.
And all your songs suck normally at first. But once you like write more and more and more and you get like the hang of it, then you get better at it.
It's a muscle.
So I know for me, my son normally sleeps over at my in-laws on Wednesday night because I have rehearsal on Wednesdays for the church. So Thursday morning, my wife goes to work pretty early because she's a teacher. I kind of have the house to myself for an hour, hour and a half. And we have a studio in the house. So I'll like be in the studio for an hour and just be like, just writing. Yep. Just to like see like what's happened. I know that like there's so many random voice memos that I have on my phone right now. That's like, we do like prayer every Monday as a staff at the church that I go to. And like, I played piano for it like 2 weeks ago. Like 2 weeks ago. And as I was playing, I started playing some like a line that I don't think I've played before. Right. And like immediately after, I was like, oh my God, I need to like track this. Right. So I like went to the other room where there's another piano because we were like, that room was going to be taken for another meeting. So I was like, I need to go track this. So went to go over, tracked it.
BRB.
Literally
it's
BRB. Fresh. And like tracked it, and like I haven't done anything with it yet, but like I know I will on one of these Thursdays. Right. So like, my creative process, I feel like is honestly more of a creative mentality. Right. Of like, even down to the stuff of like, what do I wear?
Right.
Like, I don't like wearing stuff that doesn't have a personal significant meaning to me. I'm wearing Sunday's best hat, and I'm wearing this hat because this hat was actually made by like two very dear friends of mine, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I'm wearing my ring, and I'm wearing this like rose gold Casio watch, but it's literally the only watch I wear every day.
The Casio is so cool.
Yeah, thank you. But like, you know, just, I mean, obviously to match the ring, but just for me to it's a personal reminder for me to be like, hey man, like don't overcomplicate time.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh my gosh.
And so it's for me, I've tried to put these really subtle things in my life that reinforce my mentality on how I want to be as a creative, because I don't want to like go hard in the paint all in and like turn it to something that I shouldn't be.
Right.
Or like give out a product that doesn't really fit me, you
Right.
know? Like, yeah.
I think that's incredibly valuable. The thing that's coming to mind when you say that, have you ever struggled with urgency or urgency getting in the way of the true identity of creativity or that time or what it needs to be?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, whenever it's your career, it's hard because urgency is the name of the game.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the longer you wait to put out a record, the longer you're waiting for potential royalties to come in.
Well, and you're like the longer you wait, the more irrelevant I feel. Or
yeah.
or
it becomes outdated in your brain, or it becomes like, So I feel like I feel like urgency is actually so hard for creatives because we like to, I would say as a general blanket statement, there's, you know, creatives are different throughout the board, but I feel like the ones that I know, at least, they're like, they don't want to be rushed. They want to sit and think through it because it means something to people.
Yeah.
You know, like anything that you put out, anything that you're proud of, it's normally not, oh my God, I just thought of this and I just came out in one sitting. And here it is. It's like, no, man, like, it's like for me, like another big way that I express myself creatively is actually through cooking. And so,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I love it. And so like, I actually didn't my mom is a bomb cook, and I actually didn't grow up cooking really until college.
Yeah.
But I realized that because I started making music my career, I was like, oh my God, I need another creative outlet, because that was my creative outlet. But now that it's my career, I'm like almost getting a little too overwhelmed. So I found cooking, and like, for me, it's like, you don't just learn how to make a bomb ribeye and asparagus and homemade mashed potatoes in one time. No. There's no way. Like, it's like, what type of butter do you use?
Yeah. You
what
got
cast
lucky,
iron?
maybe.
What thyme? What rosemary? What seasonings? How long do you let the steak out? Like, what kind of potatoes? Do you have gold potatoes? Do you have mini potatoes? Do you have russet potatoes? How long do you let them boil? There's so many different aspects. And I feel like the stuff that people really, really love and they hold on to is like, it's almost like you can feel when someone's like, oh yeah, like you've thought this through. Yeah. Like, oh yeah, this is you know? And so like when it comes to like urgency and creativity, I feel like sometimes it's tough because there's deadlines that you have to meet. And it's like for church, right? When I was our musical director, Sunday is over. And in my brain, I'm like, I got 6 days until Sunday, and I have 3 days until rehearsal. And I'm like, and it's not like I'm single, living by myself, and like, it's like,
have extra free time that's not being taken up by
it's
something
like, no,
else.
Like, I have a social life. I have a wife that I love to hang out with. I have a son. I have a house. I have 2 dogs. You know, like, I have people on the team that I care about, and so everything gets rushed really quick. Right. And so I think it's just finding the tension between, like, especially whenever you make it your career, finding that tension to be like, hey, like, just remember what you do, why you love what you love and why you do what you do. And it kind of makes the urgency feel like less hammered on you, if that makes sense.
Maybe important, because I feel like creatives, it's understanding the tools that are required to steward it correctly based on the time and space that we're in. Because I feel like it's, I don't know, I always feel like it's a leveling. Sometimes it's, this is higher than this. It's just kind of on a soundboard, if you will. I don't know. But I think that the urgency that is important, like you said, is, okay, I'm in the midst of doing something freely, right? Like you're playing. And then you're like, oh, I have to capture this, right? So that sense of urgency is so important because it's in that time and space that existed. And I think that probably the best advice I've gotten as a creative is write it down. And if it keeps coming back to you, that's where you go.
Oh, that's good.
And so I feel like the world doesn't offer a great toolbox for creatives.
Yeah.
And that's why mentorship is so important, because we need the trials and tribulations and the understanding of a human being, because I don't believe we can be cultivated by what society tries to give us.
Yeah. Yeah. I see what you're saying.
The pressures of the box of what a musician should look like, what a musician should look like within the church, and I feel like you, even from maybe not knowing it, but from the very beginning, you created a space that was a little bit different.
That's true. You didn't realize it really until you said it. Just me being who I am already kind of pushes the box just a little bit.
A lot of it.
I guess maybe a lot of it. That's true. And I feel like whenever, especially with all the stuff that you're saying, I think the big thing, especially in church, is trying to figure out the balance between your identity, what God says about you, and like the role in which you play at the church.
Right.
You know? Like I feel like I'm like, and I'm trying to be delicate with my words only because where I am, my church culture and what we believe and what we stand for presents a lot of who I am.
Right.
And so I'm really comfortable doing what I get to do.
Right.
And like presenting my ideas to leadership and things of that nature. But there's a lot of people that are on staff somewhere, and they're on staff because they have a family to feed and they're good at what they do. Right. And it's not a knock on them. But you look at the person, then you look at how the church is run, and you're like, man, this feels a little different, you know? And I don't think it's necessarily like a bad thing per se, but going back to even what we said earlier, your environment, your community, the people you surround yourself with, the mentality, all that stuff, that's some of the biggest elements when it comes to making sure that you keep the authenticity of your creativity as you grow older. Right. Doesn't mean that you don't evolve. Doesn't mean that life experiences happen and it shapes your perspective. Right. I think that's kind of what life is for. Right. Is to continue to refine you through the good, through the bad, through the ugly, the highs, the lows, the mountains, the valleys. Like that's the whole point of life, is to really refine you and to really help you as a creative establish like, wait, who am I actually? And like, what does this actually mean to me? And it could be even this thing of like, too, of like almost like imposed creativity of like, hey, like I've been told that I should express myself like this, but then you go through life and you're like, oh my gosh, I actually realize that although I see this as beneficial, maybe it's not beneficial to me. Right. And I actually express myself through something else. Right. And that's okay.
And I think that's a crisis a lot of people go through. Yeah. I think, and it's like you said, whether it's expectation or time, I think that time in a craft places its own expectation, but it's about that refining. And I think that's why I believe everyone has a creative part of them. I just think it to which it is played, right? Or which is required to become a whole person. But what do you feel like is the most valuable thing you've learned in the way of your gifts, and how has that affected you recently?
Oh my God, I don't know. What's the most valuable thing I've learned? Oh man. Where do I begin? Where do I start, man? Like, I mean, I keep going back to this because it really is who I am. I'm a 7 on the Enneagram. I'm a huge people guy. Actually,
have I met another 7?
I don't know.
I don't actually, maybe I've never met a male 7. How about?
Oh man, maybe. Yeah.
I don't think I have.
I'm a pretty true 7 through and through. And I feel like now, having a son, about to have another, having an amazing wife, an amazing church, an amazing home that the Lord has blessed us with. Yeah. I am now at this point where I can genuinely say that if I don't do another thing in my life, I'm totally content.
Wow.
Like, I'm just so happy because, like, I don't deserve any of this. But, like, the fact that I have people, not just a person apart from my wife, but, like, people that, like, they'll text me first of, like, hey, do you want to hang out? Or, like, hey, what's going on? I'm like, oh, that's refreshing.
Yeah.
You know? Or, like, people like you that like we texted today. I'm like,
I know, yeah.
Hey, you want to record today and then do dinner?
Hey, what's going on?
Yeah, I was like, yeah, let's do it.
And then to which our spouses are like, what's going on?
Our spouses are downstairs holding down the fort with our toddlers.
Ooh, couldn't
and
do
we're
it
over here like,
them.
la-di-da-di-da, creative. Yeah, and so like literally like, man, for me, the biggest thing that I've learned is don't overcomplicate it.
That's
and
so
like,
true.
Just enjoy the season that you're in. Mm-hmm. I'm saying that now because I like the season that I'm in, you know, honestly. Right. But like, I think there's something to be said of like, you know, like, I mean, what is this? It's January 12th. Oh my God. But like, me and Jules, we were reflecting last week on 2023. And we were like, oh my God, yeah, like, how was 2023 for us? And we're like smiling. And then we're like, oh yeah, like that happened. And then that happened. Oh yeah, and then that happened. And we were like, oh my God.
Like, how are we?
That was actually a really hard year. Like, oh my God. I can't believe we made it.
Right.
You know? But like looking back, I learned so much.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm still here.
Yeah.
I'm still standing. And like being able to, man, that lesson that I learned of like, man, don't let anything go to waste.
Right.
And just like take it for what it is. And just realize that like you will come out on the other side. Yeah. It may not be on your timeline. It may not be the way that you expect.
Never is.
Yeah, normally never is. But like, man, like you'll make it. Like you'll be okay. Right. And so for me, it's like, man, I got my church, I got my community, I got my family, and like I'm good. Right. I'm totally good.
Well, and I think that foundation is what we're all striving for. Yeah. But I think the thing that sometimes is missed is how important each component is.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I don't think that we can be truly our creative selves or have a true identity if all of those aren't in the spaces that they need to be.
Like a church background for that's kind of how I filter everything, right? It's like through Christianity, through church, through like ministry. Like I've just always told myself that money comes, money goes. But like the stuff that sticks is church, it's community, and it's your family. It is. You know? And so you might have a season as a creative where like you're killing it and you're raking in the dough, and that's freaking awesome. And I'm proud of you. Yeah. But like your gift doesn't mean anything less if sales go down. Right. It doesn't mean anything less if you're doing it and you're not making money, you know, it's just how it operates in that season, you know? And it's like you said, like how as a creative, like how do you actually stay pure when fame is trying to get you, when followers are trying to get you, when money's trying to get you? And it's like, for me, it's like going back to like, man, I think that's why I would rather have a creative mentality than a process. Wow. Because I just want to make sure that I have stuff in my life that it's just like a natural check and barrier for me to be like, you know what? even if I do make it, quote unquote, or not, you know, depending on, everyone has a different version of that too, right? Of like,
what their vision,
what does making it actually really mean?
Yeah.
But like, there's stuff in my life and people in my life that I've let speak into that be like, hey man, like, if you feel like I'm going this way, or if you feel like this is coming out of me, like, please tell me.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be like that.
Right.
Like, I want to be Jono. Like, I want to be the guy that loves to throw parties. I want to be the guy that like wants to just hang out. Like, I want to be the guy that like, I don't care like who you are. Like, you can totally have my number.
Yeah, right.
You know, like I always want to be that Jono.
Yeah.
And so the mentalities and all that stuff, that's really helped me.
And mentality though is a building block that I don't think anybody can take from you. Mm-hmm. And I think that is the sad path to watch creatives go down, where they offer up so much that can just be taken from them.
Yeah.
And so a mentality and an operating system, if you will, if that is the priority, then nobody can take your mindset from you. No. You can only encourage and speak that into other people. Yeah. But I think that in the spaces I've been most inspired and had such a, wow, I need to take a look in the mirror, is when people invest in the craft and they focus on that more than the external thing. Being able to refine that within ourselves is a part of the identity that we have to have, but through creativity is the only way we can get there. And I think that that's scary. And I think that that's why these conversations I feel like are so important, is because a lot of times people think creativity is like 2 + 2 = 4, right? Like, I have this gift.
Jesus.
I have this gift. I turn it into a product, and then all of a sudden I can feed my family. But I think the value is actually the creative process is getting us closer to who we are and who we are called to be. Yeah. And we can't gain that identity any other way.
I agree. I think that's really freaking good. I don't know what else to add to that. 'Cause I'm over here like, yeah, you're right. Like, it's not a plug and play. It's not a formula. It's not. I mean, I guess it can be, but like, why would you even want to? No. You know?
And there's parameters within a craft that kind of makes sense. Like, if I'm starting a painting, it's like, okay, first of all, I'm going to lay it out, and then I'm going to kind of sketch it out. I'm going to create a grid.
I'm going to have a draft. I'm going to have certain colors.
It is, but there
brushes.
is a flow within that that's required. And it's kind of the same, like, within music, it's sometimes people start with melodies, sometimes people start with a chorus, sometimes people just start with words. Like, and I do think that the less you boundary it, the more authentic and organic it is. Yeah. But
I think the more expression you'll have with it too. Yeah. Of like not being stuck with like, oh, it has to be like this. Yeah. It's like, it actually doesn't, you know, like even looking at worship music the last 10 years. Like 10 years ago, what we were singing to what we're singing now, like, oh my God, it sounds completely different. And everything in between. And there's a lot of stuff coming out right now that's like, oh my God, I didn't realize that worship could sound like this. Or I didn't realize that, oh my gosh, like I never thought of chords that way and things of that nature. And it's like, yeah, those are the people that said, I don't want to be put in a box and I don't want to necessarily do it the same way every time, you know?
It's the generation. Yeah. I think it's a large part of our generation of no matter how that has come for you, your parents, whatever. But I think our generation is that we don't want to do it like that. And we also we're pretty apprehensive to the generation that pushes us to a life that has to look this way to produce a result. And I think we see that in places, whether it's music or anything, I mean, you could go a lot of different directions with that, but I do think it's because our generation carries that they're going to go on a self-exploration journey that results in a product that's different.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, I feel like even with our generation, it's almost, I mean, there's pros and cons, right, to everything. I like the pro of our generation being like, no, like, express who you are. Mm-hmm. Let that shine, let that come out. Like, I love that. And then there's also the part of me where it's like, man, but processes also did build my parents. Yeah. And I like where they're at. Right. You know, and it's attention. It's attention. It's attention to be felt, not a problem to be solved. Yep. you know, and I think...
And we need to take from that what needs to be taken.
Yeah, and I think for our generation and the creative space, I think you have to look at your life and you just have to figure out what is the tensions that I want to have and what are the problems that need to be solved from me growing up. What was told to me as a tension but was really a problem,
right?
And vice versa. Like what was really a problem was actually supposed to be this tension that I live in,
right?
And I feel like, you know, whenever you have kids, like you hear in the background, and like you have a spouse and family and property, obviously things kind of get a little more gray or a little more black and white depending on your perspective, but things do get more refined, if you may. And I feel like us growing up, like I'm so glad that I had parents that were like, hey, like it's not as black and white as you think. And
that's great, because that's not always the case.
Yeah, it's not. Especially like the cultural part of it too, like being South Indian, a lot of life is black and white. And I'm really glad that my parents were like, hey man, yeah, there's some stuff that's black and white, but like a lot of life is pretty gray. Right. It's very case by case and situational, and like, do you know the person? Do you know what they went through? Do you know the experience as a creative? Like, do I actually, like, you know, even when I sing my originals, like I used to like kind of travel a little bit and like sing stuff. I'm like, man, I'm singing it, but like I actually don't know the people. Yeah. Like I actually don't know like the setting that I'm in, or like the culture, or like if there's beef that I don't know. Like I just don't know. I'm praying that the Lord continues to move and speak, but I just don't know. And like for me, I've had to be like, you know what? No, like it doesn't matter where the Lord puts me in. Like I just want to be the authentic version of myself and just let people see Jesus in me, right? And be like, this is who I am. And if you don't like it, that's okay. Yeah, you know? Right. I have my community. I got my church. Yeah, you have the foundation. You know? Yeah. So like I have my foundation, so I'm good. And I think whenever you get to see creatives live from that place of like not striving for affirmation from everyone, and not striving for, you know, honestly fill in the blank, right? Like whenever you get to see a creative truly comfortable in their own skin, man, you start to see incredible results. You know? Amazing. Yeah. Quick wrap up.
We're gonna expect music from you in 2024.
Yes. I'm actually pissed at myself that I'm literally going on record in a podcast. Video. Well, this is good. This is healthy. This is good for me, because I hate setting goals.
It's a good little push.
Yeah, it's good for me.
That's good.
But yeah, I do have a couple songs in the cooker. I don't know when they'll be released. A really close friend of mine is actually working on his record right now, and I just want to make sure that I am there for him and all his mixes. I think his record will come out in April or May.
Are we talking about Ryan?
Yeah, Ofe.
Yeah,
it's my
dude. We love Ryan Ofe. My goodness,
he's so great. My brother, and so. You know, and it's even like, too, it's like Ryan didn't ask me for me to be available, but I'm also one of his, I feel like I'm a very close friend of his, and he's like, I mean, he's literally like family to me, that I just want to make sure that I am available for not just the creative side, but just to be like, because he's a creative too, right? Yeah, right. It's like, hey, like, I know how to encourage a creative. Yeah, right. It's like, hey, like, I know... Like, you know, whenever you like know someone and they're not tired, or they're telling themselves that they're not tired, but you know that they're tired, and you're like, hey man, like, when was the last time you like went to go watch a movie? Yeah, right. And when was the last time you like ate? Yeah, right. You know? Yeah. And you're like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. And
nothing is more empowering than being in a space with someone who gets you without maybe, like, you don't have to explain yourself, right? Yeah. Like, it's like you showing up, you're a 7, I'm a 7, we're creators. We can speak a language in a place that we not only respect, but it's just a wavelength. I just think that that's what it is. And so it's important. That's why... Facts. That's good. And that's such an honorable thing for you as a friend to know. And also, I think we don't really know what we need. I think that's a part of it. Sometimes we don't know what we need.
We don't.
And so when people show up to give things to us, it's more being in the place to receive. But because we just don't know. Sometimes we just don't know.
And I even feel like, too, you led me on this path that is actually really good, is we don't like to admit this as creatives, but we're a lot more similar than we realize.
Yep.
And it's like this identity crisis of like, no, but I'm unique and I'm special.
Nobody can do it like me.
No one can do it like me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I love you, but they totally can.
You've bamboozled yourself.
Yeah. And I'm like, not only can they, but they can probably do it better than you.
Right. And the fact that we need each other. And I think
we do. We totally need each other.
Yeah. When you were talking about earlier about how somebody can write 2 songs in a day, you'll get people who'll get in a writing room and they'll kick out a song in literally 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Melody, chords, everything, lyrics.
So annoying.
And so to that point, it's like you get 2 people at a divine point and incredible things can happen.
Yeah, totally.
So as a creative, don't believe that you have to be in a space of isolation to create something great either.
That's so good.
Because I think it will kill
really good
ideas really quickly. And I think that that's kind of something that you just have to be aware of and you have to have your own experiences with, honestly.
Yeah. And I even feel like, too, like going back, I think if you are creative, I think you should make it your priority to find someone that's been doing it longer than you.
Absolutely.
It should be a no-brainer. Only because, like, going back to, how do I actually know that I'm tired? Wait, what actually fuels me? What actually drives me? Wait, how do I actually find my flow? How would I, all those questions that we have early on when your creativity is your career.
Yeah.
Man, finding someone that's been in the game longer than you and be like, how'd you do it?
Right.
Like having those answers, even if it's answers that you don't agree with, it's answers that are refining you.
Right.
To be like, at least I know I don't like this.
Right.
Or at least I know that this isn't the option for me.
Right.
And like having, like I have people in my life that they've been doing this a lot longer than me, but I can relate to them. And I'm like, hey, like what do you do on your rest day?
Yeah.
How do you approach relationships? How do you approach family events? How do you approach discipline with your kids?
Right,
It's like, I don't think I have all the answers, and I probably never will.
Right.
But being able to submit to some people that have been doing it a little longer, especially as creatives, man, I feel like it'll only help you in the long run.
I completely agree. The mentorship is so necessary. Well, this has been incredible. I'm so thankful. I can't wait just to watch what happens over the next year. I think it's going to be really incredible.
It's going to be awesome.
Where can people find you so that we can, hold you accountable?
Oh my gosh, I freaking hate this. Where can people find me? You can find me on social, I guess.
And Spotify. You're on there.
Yeah, I don't know.
Don't downplay it.
I hate talking about myself. Yeah, Spotify, Apple Music. It's old stuff, but it's cool. New music coming out soon.
Jono Jacob.
Jono_Jacob on socials. Jono Jacob on streaming. So I'm launching my shoe cleaning business this year too.
That's incredible.
Jono.cleans.your.sneakers. Because I have to get creative.
Find a username these days.
Not the best username, but it feels right to me. So
that's good. That's all that's important.
What I'm going with. So yeah, so if you're in the business of shoes or music, those are really the two biggest things that I'm passionate about right now.
Jono's your guy.
Jono's your guy.
This is great. I'm so glad. Well, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Bailey.
It's the best.
Heck yeah, we're gonna go eat pizza now.
Bye.
Bye.